Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Okay, I don't need the crowd response, but that was nice. Thank you, Steve. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today. It is our second Wednesday safety session presented by Milwaukee Tools. Today is November 10th, 2021. We are broadcasting live from the offices of Styles Construction. Many thanks to Ian Schwartz and the team from Styles for hosting us each and every month. We appreciate it. As always, I always want to start off by thanking all the people that help us be here and present to you all, not just Styles, but also I want to thank the team at Kelly Cronenberg for their help with all the technical aspects of our presentation. Tim and Cedric over there, thank you guys very much. I want to thank Safe Right Solutions. We have Catherine here from their team. Safe Right is awesome. They always provide us with some great breakfast. So for those of you here in person, make sure you go over, grab yourself a bagel, some coffee. And we got our catalog out there. You got your catalog out there, right? That's awesome. Cool. And I also want to thank, again, our team from Milwaukee Tools. One thing, for those of you who come in person now, we're going to be raffling off each month something very cool from Milwaukee. And unfortunately, I cannot put my name into the raffle. So we're going to get that sign-in sheet going, and later on at the end of the session, we're going to pick out someone who's going to win this cool pack out. So that being said, let's get Roger up here. Roger, come on up and join us. Let us know what's going on with you and your team at Milwaukee.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me today. My name is Roger Flores. I'm the territory manager. I oversee GC and concrete. The news from Milwaukee in the next coming weeks, we're coming out with a lot of safety products that you guys are going to be able to have. In the next session, we're going to be able to have some of our new gloves, vests, hard hats, and some of their newest stuff that Milwaukee's coming out with. As Carlos said as well, on every session, we're going to have a gift for all people that is present on the sessions, on the safety sessions. And I mean, keep an eye on it, because every time, I'm pretty sure we're gonna be bringing something better, from coolers all the way up to tools. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So before we get to the heart of our presentation today, I want to point out just a few important items, some things that are coming up. Next month's second Wednesday safety session, we're going to have OSHA Area Director Condell Eastman joining us. He's going to be joining us remotely, but we're going to keep the party going on here. We're going to have breakfast. Milwaukee's going to be having a setup here as well. So some fun and prizes for you to come in and join us in person. Condell's going to be coming in. He's the OSHA Area Director, and he's going to be discussing, or he's going to be presenting what we call our state of OSHA for 2022. He'll be going over what's going on at the administration, what they're working on, and what you can expect to see in 2022. As you all know by now, there is a lot that we want to know from Condell, and Condell is always very generous in providing us with that information. So join us. That'll be December 8th again, and obviously second Wednesday of the month. Safety fair. We are going back. We put our safety fair on hiatus last year because of COVID, but it's coming back. We're going to be at January 22nd. We still don't have a location confirmed, but it will be in Miami-Dade County. We're going to be hosting, again, 200 plus workers. We need volunteers, folks. We need folks to come in and teach our classes, be it first aid, be it forklift. If you want to volunteer your time to help out folks that are the sub of the sub, is what these guys typically are working for. They're not folks that have safety training available to them at work, unlike all of you and your companies. I know you guys are at the top of the pyramid when it comes to that. So come on in, give us a Saturday and help us. We teach two classes. We have an 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. session, and then we have a 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. session. We provide lunch. There is no cost to those attendees. So we're also looking for sponsors to help us cover those costs. We will have a expo area. So if you have products you want to present, if you have, if you're a vendor and you want to come in and talk to folks about your wares, please let us know. We'd love to have you. It's a fantastic event, and I hope you all participate. Some other exciting news. We've got a safety awards program. So South Florida AGC is going to be turning 100 years old next year. And in all that time, we've never had a safety awards program. That's going to change. Our safety excellence program is going to be rolling out. All you need is your OSHA 300 form. Am I saying that right, folks? It's your OSHA 300? All right, cool. Just making sure. I'm just a pretty face here, folks. So you guys, all you need to do is turn in your OSHA 300, a very simple form, and that will be open in December for you to download the application and get it going. I'll be emailing you all more information on that. And to celebrate, we are going to be having an awards luncheon on February 18th from 12 to 3 p.m. at the Hard Rock. So fun news, fun fact, they're going to have craps now. So you guys can come out to the Hard Rock, watch me be my worst self after 3 p.m. with a couple drinks in me, throwing craps. So come hang out at my table. All right. That being said, time to get on to the meat of our presentation. We're very lucky to have some very talented professionals in this room each month. And in the case today of today's presenter, he's here each month and he's a member of our safety committee. We're welcoming Bryan Cardona, Safety Director at Advanced Roofing, one of Florida's largest commercial roofing contractors. He's a member of AGC Safety Committee, as I said before, and Bryan's going to be discussing common issues encountered by roofing contractors and the best practices he employs on his job sites. He's also going to talk about what GC should be aware of when working with their roofing contractors to keep them in line. That being said, Mr. Cardona, please come on up and join us. And you can hit share on that.
That is difficult to follow up. If I knew where my share button was, Carlos, that'd be great. Carlos, where's our share button on here on this?
Oh, sir, I am so sorry. If you're going to have to get out of your PowerPoint,
Okay.
You're going to have to go back to your screen.
Got it.
Voila. To Zoom. It happens to all of us.
So of course this would happen.
You have a beautiful dog, sir.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. All right. Here we go, rocking and rolling. All right, good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing? Good morning. Good to see new faces and old faces. My name is Bryan Cardona, as it is on the screen. I'm going to confess immediately, number one cardinal sin with PowerPoint, not supposed to put a lot of information on there, but I thought of myself. I have been attending the meetings through the phone and through my laptop, so kind of enjoy reading some of the stuff on there. So we will discuss, what's on these slides, but also I'd like to know a little bit more on the Q&A side. Hopefully we have some questions here for us as roofing contractors, but more or less, what are your expectations as general contractors as well? I think it's extremely important. It's also important to note that in the roofing industry, especially locally, it's in my opinion, a trade that's underserved. And what I mean by that, there's a lot of issues as far as barriers, one of them being educational barriers, language barriers that we find in the roofing trade industry. It's also very difficult to hire roofers. I know, newsflash. I know it's happening everywhere, but prior to COVID, it was very difficult to hire roofers to begin with, okay? I don't know many people who say, hey, I want to be a roofer when I grow up, but it is a noble trade, right? I come from your background. I've worked with general contractors. This is my first roofing company I work for. We've been here 8 years, and I've learned to love the trade and respect the trade. It is a difficult job, a job in which you're constantly exposed to hazards. As we all know, number one, it hasn't fallen from number one, unfortunately, which is fall protection. Number one reason for fatalities. And guess what? As roofers, we're always exposed to that at all times. In addition to that, also heat stress, right? We all know that there's a new heat stress standard coming out that OSHA will be adopting soon. So these are things that on a daily basis, roofers are seeing. I know they're not unique to the trade, but it's an everyday thing, right? It's not someone goes up to the deck, performs some work for a day, and then goes somewhere else on the job site. We are on that deck every single day, putting down a unique roofing system that in and of itself presents hazards, right? Hazards that you may or may not be familiar with, right? Different roofing systems, whether they may be more difficult or easier to actually install, will always present its unique actual hazards itself. So with that said, let's start off. What is roofing work, right? This is just a basic definition of OSHA of what roofing work is. It's whenever you're hoisting any materials, roofing materials, dealing with any roofing equipment, anything that deals with roofing, including sheet metal on there as well. Okay. As a company, as our company, actually, Carlos, I'd like to say, if you don't mind, 12th in the nation, because I know you said top in Florida, but 12th in the nation as far as revenue goes. It is a company that's extremely dedicated to safety, and we're trying to change our own industry by providing as much training as possible, right? And some of the slides you're going to see here, just based on what I'm seeing and the familiar faces, might seem elementary to you, right? But I'm really trying to touch those other safety professionals who may have just gotten their foot into the door and haven't really engaged with an actual roofing contractor. I recall my first time that I engaged with a roofing contractor. Very interesting. I had never seen a mobile tie-off card in my life. How many of you have actually seen one? Right on. Kind of weird, right? Doesn't make any sense. You got wheels on it. You got stuff to tie off to. There's a hook that comes down. None of it makes any sense, right? Fortunately, now I know. And I would say to you, read your manuals. And I know that's something you know, but please do your homework, especially when you're talking about any life-saving equipment. Anything that goes on that roof that can save a life, that is a tie-off point, is your responsibility as a safety professional, okay? And ask questions. Because I know at times as safety professionals, we kind of tend to want to know all the answers or run back to a book or run back to a manual. Engage in that conversation, right? That'd be one of the tips that I can give to you that helped me learn as much as possible as I can. Yes, I have 8 years in it now, but within my first year, I had so much information coming at me. So from that experience, I learned, that roofing work, it's not just once we're up there on the roof, it's when we're hoisting those materials. Yeah. Nothing changes because we're roofing. We need to make sure we have a certified rigger, right? Certified signal person, ensure whether or not we have a guardrail in place, conventional fall protection systems, right? Is the person signaling tied off? Is there a guardrail in front of them? Again, these are the basics, and I get that, but we tend to forget once different trades start to operate. Now, I'm aware that my audience today is mostly general contractors, right? And that can be from larger contractors to smaller contractors. So that typically means you either have a lot of resources or you're wearing a lot of hats, right? And many of us do wear a lot of hats. So engage as much as possible in the pre-construction process, right? What is the roofing system we're putting down? What are we doing? What is the scope of work? Let's walk through it. And we're all familiar with JHAs and how necessary they are. I hope that everyone in here actually takes the time to read some of these. We've turned some into some general contractors. Hopefully nobody in here that we kind of made a mistake here or there. Nobody noticed, right? That's not good for our profession. We should be engaged at all times into what's actually happening on our job, obviously. So starting off with roofing, very important. And early on in the process, we're going to determine whether or not we're looking at a steep slope roof or a low slope roof, right? And that's determined by whether the roof is greater than 412 or less than 412, right? And if we're talking degrees, that's 18.43 degrees. So if you're over that, you'd be considered a steep slope. If you're under that, it's a low slope. And that's extremely important, especially for you as a safety professional, to understand what fall protection systems we can actually use, right, according to that roof itself. Now, if we break up how OSHA has it written down, we have conventional fall protection and we have non-conventional fall protection. And we'll show that here on this screen. So again, I didn't hear the gasp, don't freak out. I know this says safety monitoring system on here, and I know every general contractor for the most part is very quick to say, no, we don't do that. We don't allow that. And that is your right. You can always go above and beyond OSHA, and we understand that, and that's okay. However, let's remember that pre-construction part, scope of work, walking through that, JHA. You may be in a scenario in which you have a very tall building with very difficult access in which you do have to roof and fully understand where you're coming from. But there's a reason why OSHA has that system in play, and there's a reason why it's offered to roofers, right? I'm a firm believer that it can't be done right if it's done right. What I mean by that is the proper supervision in place? You have the competent person there, right? Because the safety monitor knows what he's supposed to do. Is he engaged actively at all times with whoever is near the edge? Do you have a plan in place? Is everybody on board with that plan, right? These are all things that you can do if you're going to do a safety monitoring system. In my experience, we don't do this at Advanced Roofing, but I have seen this in the roofing industry. We are too quick to jump to the safety monitoring system. We bypass everything else, right? In the name of doing a job faster, less money, et cetera, et cetera. And the truth of the matter is we've looked at it and it's not really true, right? If you have somebody as a safety monitor, what you're doing is basically paying someone to stand and watch someone else. So there's more than one way, especially with fall protection systems and all the systems that OSHA offers us, to be able to safely engage in work on an actual edge, okay? So obviously up here we have your guardrail systems, your safety nets. Has anybody used safety nets for fall? I'm always curious about this because locally I've never seen it. I've only seen it for trash or anything that may fall off a building. But can anyone raise their hand if you've used a safety net system as a fall protection system before? And I thought so. So I've only seen that in bridge work, to be honest with you, right? It's very famous in bridge work, but I've never really seen it in any other industry. And I'm assuming the amount of risk associated with setting up a safety net must be through the roof, right? But it is considered a conventional system. Obviously, personal fall arrest, we know what that means, right? You got your harness on, you've got your lanyard, and you've got your anchor point too, which obviously all those three components to the system must work 100% if you happen to do fall off the edge. So it is a false sense of security, in my opinion. And it's also obviously a system that has to be respected at all times. And then we have your non-conventional, which is a warning line, safety monitoring system, and covers for holes. And that's a big one near and dear to my heart, right? When I say holes to you, you likely think, small 2-inch hole, walking working surface, cover it, right hole, move on. That's right. Whoever said it back there, thank you very much. Why is it near and dear to my heart? Because skylights are what typically kill roofers on jobs. Right? Unprotected skylights, unaware of skylights, skylights that aren't marked. Time and time again, every year, we lose roofers because of skylights. It is extremely important through the process of pre-construction meetings, right? Before you step foot on site, identifying where these skylights exist, what type of skylights they are that are installed, and what are we going to do to protect the workers that are on there. There's a slide on here dedicated to skylights. I did want to mention, has anyone seen the YouTube video from OSHA? I think it's California OSHA, specifically about skylights and preventing falls. If you haven't, and say you're doing your safety orientation for your guys and you happen to have skylights on your job site, I highly, highly suggest. It's a 5-minute video and worth a lot more than those 5 minutes as far as impact goes. It's a true case study that happened in California. Unfortunately, someone did die that day, and they walk you through the entire process of what happened. So 5 minutes, I think well worth your time, especially if you have any skylights on your job. You could look that up on YouTube, cost you $0. Next slide. So we have warning line systems. I'm not going to read you guys what a warning line system. I hope everyone knows. If you don't, do like I do, go back, look at the book when you have a chance, right? That's something I want to say. As safety professionals, I think we put a lot of burden on ourselves to try to remember some of these regulations, some of the standards. And it's all about, hey, I need to have the answer quickly. And, for my superintendent, foreman, or whoever it might be, slow down, right? The important part is having the right answer, right? Giving the right information. Unfortunately, in my experience, I oftentimes overhear safety professionals say things like, oh, OSHA says do this or do that are completely incorrect, right? I would hope that we could all engage, in ensuring that we're always giving the right information. Don't be too quick to provide an answer and then look it up. It's okay to look up your answers. It's okay to say, hey, I'll get you that answer. Give me a couple minutes, or let's look it up together. Let's engage in that process, right? Let's do it together. I'm big on creating that teamwork and engaging the actual employees on the job site. To wither away the whole idea that safety professionals are cops on job sites, whether they're coordinators, carpenters, whoever it might be. It's an unfortunate thing that we have, that they'll always view safety professionals like that. But I believe through conversation, whether they're difficult conversations, that we can go ahead and have a successful and safe job site day in and day out, right? And it starts with that communication. It starts with facts. It starts with providing the right answers at the right time as well. So as far as warning line systems go, it's a system typically used on job sites for roofers, right? 6 feet from the edge. unless you're actually operating any equipment. If you are operating equipment, the direction in which you're traveling, that line now moves forward 10 feet. By the way, if I was an OSHA inspector, I would be all over that. That is the #1 violation I see on any roofing job site, is the failure to move your warning lines in while you're operating equipment. Another one is there's a long list of equipment that's considered motorized equipment, right? That you must have a fall protection system. So again, there's a little bit of legwork that you're gonna have to do as a safety professional to understand what are the actual rules as far as OSHA states. And then also what are the best practices you're going to engage in your job site. Continuing with warning lines, the other thing we see is a lot of people have the incorrect cones, incorrect heights, a lot of warning lines that come down, not the correct warning lines, not flagged off in 6-foot intervals. These are just basic things that in my 16 years now, a lot of safety equipment has caught up with the actual standards, right? If you go 16 years ago, I mean, that mobile tile card freaked me out. I had no idea what I was looking at. Now it's commonplace, right? Warning lines that come already 6-foot intervals, right? With the right color, that's stock now. You just purchase that. The correct cones and the correct height, there's no science behind this. So for those of you who provide safety products, thank you. You do a great service to us by doing that and taking out some of the legwork as well. I did mention down here, which was the mechanical equipment, 10 feet. I'll say that again, that's a very important one because that's an easy gimme, especially if you were a compliance officer or just in general from a safety standpoint. Why do we need that additional extra 4 feet? Well, basically, if you're using a roofing cutter, lugger, or anything near that actual edge, it allows you extra space. God forbid, if you were to trip, now you're not directly in front of that edge and possibly rolling off the roof. So there's a purpose for that 10-foot. Safety monitoring system, everyone's favorite. As we stated, it must be a competent person. As we also said, same walking working surface. Another thing I commonly see on job sites, if you have what we refer to as either penthouse roofs or a pop-up roof, someone standing up there looking down on everyone, looks pretty cool, nice shot, but no, can't do that. You have to be on the same walking working surface. You must be able to see them at all times. And what you can't engage in, which is looking one way and having other people over there and doing this whole turret thing, right? That means you need another safety monitor. So the monitor, as we said, is considered the most dangerous system because in theory, there's nothing stopping you from falling over the edge, right? So that means your communication has to be priority. That means everybody has to be on the same plan, understanding what are the different calls from the safety monitor. Also trusting that safety monitor is looking there. That monitor can't go, hey, I need to go to the bathroom and leave, right? So these are things we need to look out for. I'm fully aware that none of you will likely use this system in your job site, but do understand, you might have that one area where we do need to use it. So keep a close eye on that. Covers and skylights. The good thing that's happening now with technology is they're actually building skylights that can resist a fall, okay? A direct fall from someone. The actual base of the skylight should have a sticker referring to the actual standard on OSHA. And then in your job sites, I'm hoping if you have skylights, you are purchasing these skylights for 2 reasons. One, thank you, because we are the roofers that will likely come back to your job site if there is a leak, which likely there will be a leak. There's always a leak, right? That means that you're going out of your way to protect the roofers. 2, maintenance workers. Let's not forget about maintenance workers. Maintenance workers are also underserved and undereducated when it comes to safety. Anything we can do to eliminate hazards that lead directly to fatalities is something we should focus on. It's something that we're actively engaged in with our clients. Whenever we put a new roofing system on, we highly encourage, if there's a skylight, that we have a fall rated skylight installed. If that's not the case, I'm hoping, within the next 10 to 15 years, we'd adopt what California did, which is basically putting a protective screen over every skylight, meaning there is a physical barrier to prevent you from falling through that skylight, right? These things save lives, right? Very, very economical, very simple things to use, and they go a long way, right? So this is one of the screenshots from the actual video itself. As we all know, with holes, we put caution, danger, hole, right? Actually danger or hole, not caution, spray painted on there, make sure that it's secure, which is one of the other biggest issues. I'm sure most of you have a story where you had either a day laborer or somebody come by picking up stuff, grabs that piece of plywood that said danger that was never secured, and lo and behold, you have an exposed hole, right? In my time in safety, I think I've heard of 3 fatalities that have happened like that. Again, underserved and undereducated trades, such as day laborers, they're the ones that are going to be picking up these materials on your job sites. They're the ones that are going to be exposed to these to these holes. They're the ones that will likely fall through. Okay. And it's our responsibility to ensure, first and foremost, that we educate those who step foot on our job site. I know we have a tendency of going, hey, show me your JHA, your site-specific safety plan, your certification's good to go. You start next week. Awesome. I feel we're doing a disservice as a safety professional if that's how we engage with our trades, right? Who's your competent person? Who is the foreman on your team? Who do I need to communicate on a daily basis? Who are we going to go over your actual scope of work? What are the actual existing hazards with that trade? I know all of this means time, but at the end of the day, what it means is that individual gets to go back home to their family, the same exact mission that you are on, right? That conversation, that engagement, those difficult conversations, right? Not allowing silent permission to exist on your job site, which is looking the other way. That's what we do our job for, in my opinion, right? At least that's what I'm a safety professional for. I'm in it to ensure that everyone gets back home safe. And I know that's a lofty goal and it's my shoulders to bear. And I would hope that everyone feels the same way as well. So with that said, let's make sure that we have our skylights covered, that it is an area of focus. If there's anything else that you're doing other than fall protection, it's that those skylights need to be protected. There has to be a system and a plan in place. Struck by hazards happens often, right? I'm sure everyone has a story here as well. Struck by hazards. I'm pleased to see that more trades are going towards tethering their tools, especially when engaging in any lead edge work or any edge work, any perimeter work. Even if you have any curbs that are open or any holes that are open as well, of significance, just a large hole, tethering your equipment, tethering your tools, anything that can be tethered should be, right, at all times to prevent anything from dropping through. Countless times I've heard horror stories about something dropping, whether it's a random tool or even worse, a large piece of equipment. And I'm pretty sure we've seen some of that in the past couple of years locally as well. So as we see here, 170 fatalities occurred, 15% that dealt with struck by fatalities. Obviously, those numbers are skewed as well because of actual road work, which is one of the most dangerous works we have in construction as well. It's also considered struck by. But ensuring that we have control areas on the ground is also another system that we can use that I rarely see implemented as well. If we're doing perimeter work, I'm thinking of tethering my tools. I'm thinking of how am I going to create barriers to prevent people to access these areas in which potentially something could fall. Now, I fully understand workers tend to ignore any lines that you set up. Doesn't matter how many signs you put up. There will be that one person that ignores it. However, we are supposed to put control lines to prevent anyone from engaging in that little area where something can actually fall, right? I recently just had an incident where, somebody was going up a ladder on a job site in a cordoned off area, control line, and lo and behold, something flew off the actual edge of the roof and struck the person while on the ladder, falls off the ladder. Thankfully, nothing happened. He was okay. He got back up. Was he supposed to be in that area? No. More importantly, was anything supposed to fly off the roof? No. After inspecting, we see that those materials were actually within 6 feet of that edge. You should never have any materials within 6 feet of any perimeter, period, unless you have a guardrail of 39 inches or higher, right? To prevent anything from falling over. So these are small tips that I'm sure most of you know. But again, for those safety professionals that just started off their career, these are tips that are extremely important, things we should use. Roofing systems. For the most part, we've seen with new construction, it's usually TPO, which is that white membrane that's reflective of the sun. Obviously, economical for clients as well. But if you work with Broward County schools, if you work with Miami-Dade schools, some of these roofs are older, and that's not exactly the roofing system they use. They go back to the built-up roof with kettles. And yes, kettles still do exist. We still use them. And it's actually the best roofing system that exists, believe it or not. It's self-healing. If there's any issues with it, as it heats up, it continues melting. So that's here to stay. Now, if you were in the state of California, it'd be a little different. I think they're kind of pushing out what we call coal tar pitch kettle roofing. But there's very specific safety rules that we need to follow when we talk about built-up roofs and we're talking about kettles. Ensuring that we have a 10-foot clearance, unobstructed egress at all times. Combustible materials have to be 20 feet away from where the kettle operator is operating. Okay, he has very unique PPE as well. You have to ensure that he has cuffless pants. He has a long sleeve shirt buttoned up all the way. He has the large leather gloves. Okay, he has a face shield, obviously safety glasses as well at all times. He needs to be able to take the temperature of that kettle. You need to know as a safety professional, what is the flash point of the material that's going into that kettle. When that kettle blows up, it's too late for you to try to figure that out. So I highly suggest you engage in reading the safety data sheet, which you will find that information for that specific material. I know this is part of your process when you onboard an actual contractor for a trade. Ensuring that propane tanks are in use, are secured in an upright position at least 10 feet from the kettle. So these are very specific distances that we don't typically see anywhere else within OSHA. 2 20-pound fire extinguishers within 25 feet, and extremely important, the actual kettle operator must be within a certain distance of the kettle. So I believe it's 10 feet from the kettle, if I'm not right, 25 feet, I apologize. 25 feet from the kettle. In other words, he can't say, hey, I'm going to the bathroom, I'm out. Who's taking care of the kettle? That kettle is going to continuously heat up. There's a process to maintain that kettle at a certain temperature, okay? If you ever find yourself doing that, I don't know how many of you actually still deal with these type of roofing systems, but again, the public schools, you see that a lot there. The airport, you'll see that a lot. So it is a system that's kind of here to stay, and it's a preference for a lot of clients. So near and dear to my heart, another thing that kind of freaked me out, other than the mobile tile part, when I saw it for the first time, was an actual torch. I had never seen a torch on a job site. So imagine seeing a torch with a hose connected to propane and a guy just going all out. It looks very cool. Also looks very dangerous, right? Especially to someone who's never seen it. So there is a certification process. Newsflash for everyone here. If you ever have a torch on your job site, first thing you should ask for is a certification. Every single torch operator must have a certification. And it's actually something that the NRCA, which is the National Roofing Contractors Association, created. Why did they create it? To stop roof fires. It's actually paying dividends. It's awesome. The program has totally dipped the amount of fires that we've seen due to engaging in torch roofing activities. I know locally we had one a while back. If I'm not wrong, Cleveland Clinic. It was your site. I apologize if I got that information wrong. I apologize as well. But my understanding is there was a roofing system that was torched, and unfortunately it did catch fire. This is years ago. I myself have seen fires as well on roofs. So it's something that is to be respected at all times. It is called the CERTA applicator certification. So it's Certified Roofing Torch Applicator. That's an 8-hour course. We teach that course as well. 4 hours, we dive into the books, into the rules, and then 4 hours hands-on. The sole purpose of the CERTA certification is safety. It's not how to torch, doesn't teach you how to torch, none of that. It is how to safely engage in a torching roofing system. How to turn it on, how to turn it off, how to inspect your equipment, what you need to know, how to stop a fire, how to use a fire extinguisher, which fire extinguisher you should use, which materials, what are their flash points, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that is the difference between an educated torch operator who will likely not torch your roof, right? Won't have a fire on your roof, or someone who just willy-nilly, yeah, I've been doing it for 10 years, I'm good. We're good to go, right? And I've seen those guys too. They usually have a cigarette in their mouth with torch and the propane next to it. That giveaway. So there's certifications that you may not be familiar with, and that's one of them, right? we internally actually are starting our own certification program. If you recall, I did say we're trying to be a trailblazer in safety as far as roofing goes. One of the main reasons I came into this industry was to try to make a difference. I know it sounds very noble, but hey, I'm trying, right? We are coming up with what's called, taking a little piece from what they wrote here, CERCO, which is a certified roofing kettle operator. Believe it or not, doesn't exist, which is mind blowing, right? Considering how many hazards exist with the actual kettle, what can go wrong. We figured, you know what, it's worth our time to go ahead and create a curriculum that would ensure safety for actual kettle operators. So we're actively engaged in that, and we hope to roll that out soon. And it's not something that's for profit. Again, we're here about educating our trade, ensuring that everybody goes home to the family. That's the mission day in and day out. Yes, Ian?
It says that you have to keep a minimum of 2 fire extinguishers within 10 feet of the torching operations. The torching operations move at a fast pace across the roof. How do you keep those 2 fire extinguishers near where you're working, where you're moving at, you know, a good pace across the roof?
So companies that provide fire
Could you repeat the
extinguishers?
question?
Sure. The question from Ian was, how do we keep up with the pace of actual rolling out roofing material, since it's usually in rolls? You need 2 fire extinguishers within 10 feet of your operations. Where Ian's saying is, you know, how do we ensure that we're complying with the actual rule? Great question. Thank you for asking that. By the way, the companies that provide fire extinguishers love roofing companies for this specific rule, right? We will show up with an army of fire extinguishers because of this rule if we're torching. So in other words, if I'm torching an actual roll, I will have a fire extinguisher on my left and my right, count 10 feet, left, right, count 10 feet more. And I will count out my roll. And that's what's required, and that's what happens. That's what needs to be done at all times to satisfy that rule. We go a bit above and beyond. Like, we have a lot of fire extinguishers, 10 pounders, 20 pounders, everything on there, just for the simple fact that we know if we're dealing with a torch, there's combustible materials on site. Other than satisfying the rule, we need to be ready at all times, right? So that, yeah, we have a lot of fire extinguishers. So that's basically how we have to do it. And that's how CERTA teaches it as well. It's for every 10 feet. Now, the smart thing to do is if you have, you know, more than one team torching rolls, you'd have in between them at every 10 feet, and now you're saving on some fire extinguishers. So there's some things that you can play with as far as the distances and how many extinguishers you have, and you're still complying with the actual rule itself. I appreciate the question. Thank you. I did want to go back because this is also unique. Fire watch, typically we hear is how many, what's the time limit? 30, right? 2-hour fire watch. Any torch activity that you engage in, 2-hour fire watch should be done in 15-minute intervals, should be recorded and documented, right? At 15 minutes, what was the temperature? That means you need to have a temperature gun. You could use an infrared gun as well, a thermal gun like we use most often to identify any hotspots that are not coming down in temperature. So every 15 minutes, that temperature should be going down. It does become challenging if your roof is in the middle of summer, completely exposed, that temperature may stay there a little longer. Hence why it makes a lot of sense to have a 2-hour fire watch. Now, have there ever been incidents where you have a smoldering incident past 2 hours? 110% believe that it does happen, right? But the importance is when you stop your actual torching activities, that's when your fire watch stops. You should always stop, not at the end of the day, but at least 2 hours before the end of the day, so that you have enough time where there's still people on a job site. God forbid something happens, we see it, and we have all the fire extinguishers up on the roof so we can actively engage in putting off that fire. And I know I've said engage like 100 times, sorry guys.
You implemented a hot work permit?
Yes, absolutely. Always implement a hot work permit, right? And that's where we have the opportunity as roofers to speak with the safety professionals on site. You know, what's our scope of work, what we're doing, how long it's going to take, who's going to do the fire watch, who's our qualified person, our certifications, etc. So yes, thank you. Good question. As we mentioned before, safety data sheets, right? We all know the big push a couple years ago with GHS. There's different roofing materials, very hazardous roofing materials that exist, different PPE that's required depending on the material and how you're handling it. This is just, I put it up here as a reminder. it's important to ensure that we know what we're dealing with. You guys know what your roofers on site are exposed to, right? Fortunately for roofers, we are working in open areas, right? Where any accumulation of, say, any substances, gases, vapors, etc., doesn't necessarily exist, but it could be unique to your job site. Sometimes roofers do have to go into tight quarters underneath, let's say, a large chiller unit, right? That's difficult to get in there, and you might have to torch, or you might have to put down a roofing system that has a substance that may accumulate within that area. So these are things a little bit outside the box that, you know, you can actually reviewing the scope of work, reviewing what's going on, the actual SDS. These are things that come to light. Oftentimes, a roofer's not going to tell you, yeah, I'm going to engage in some very hazardous work in this specific area. But we should look out for these areas, not considered confined, but very difficult to enter and work underneath. So these are some of the keys to success that we have at our company, things that have worked out for us. We just put it up here on the slide. We always perform what's called pre-construction meetings, you know, walkthroughs. None of this is new to you. Actually, it's kind of new to the roofing industry, to be honest with you. They're still catching up to some of the norms that have been set. Attendees include the VP of construction, a project manager, construction manager, a foreman, assigned safety coordinator. Yes, we come in there with an army, and we come in there with a purpose to ensure that you guys know what we do, satisfy any questions you have, and at the same time, make sure that we're feeling warm and fuzzy and everybody's going to be safe, right? So we have 5 safety coordinators, a full safety department, safety manager, and a safety director. Uncommon in the roofing trade industry. Don't expect that out of most companies, right? But a lot of these responsibilities fall on you to ask these questions, to engage or talk to those actual roofers themselves. Interior documentation, we always do that as well. Site-specific safety plan. Always ask for your site-specific safety plan. Don't just say, hey, because they're a roofer, they likely don't have someone who's going to do it. No. Push the industry to be better. Always, 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 always. Okay. Ask the same things that you ask from anyone else in your job site as well. And this is just basically what we go through on a daily basis. That's it. Q&A. Any questions?
Anybody got questions? Don't be shy. So I have one from the chat.
Okay.
It's coming from Rogelio Vargas, and it's how do you minimize tripping hazards with the fire extinguishers when you have them within 10 feet?
So when we're usually roofing with any torching activity, any rolls, it's usually in a large space, okay, to begin with. It's what you call the field of the roof. You don't necessarily torch in tighter, smaller spots. It's not that difficult. It's really, you're putting fire extinguishers on each side of the actual roll, outside of the actual roll, and the roofer has to torch that roll as he moves forward. So that tripping hazard wouldn't exist for the torch operator. It can exist for the other roofers. I could see where on an active job site, if you have multiple trades in one area, that could be challenging. But again, that's where you would go through your process of what's your scope of work, how's it going to look like, what trades do you have up there as well. But traditionally, the fire extinguisher is on the ground.
Okay. And a question from the very famous Fernando Gonzalez of GoneSafe. Can you cheat by using a heat gun?
No. Well, it's not cheating. That's an actual system as well. So you do have what's called a Leister gun, which is a heat gun. And it pushes out hot air. So you're what's called air welding or hot air welding. Specific systems do require that instead of an actual torch. So it all depends on the system, right? The system will drive how it's going to be put down and installed. If you have a single ply system that's mechanically attached, you're in heaven. You're just talking about putting some plates down and screws, and it's basically the safest roofing system compared to something like a built-up roof or a torch roof.
Yeah. Fernando, I hope you're not thinking of getting into roofing. Any other questions?
All right.
Wow, you did such a good job. You don't have
I'm
any
sure
questions.
I did. Thank you, guys.
Let's
Appreciate
give
your time.
1 second to folks on the chat. And Fernando wrote, no heat detecting gun.
Sure. Absolutely. So whenever you torch, you do have a thermal gun. At least that's what we use. We use a FLIR. I believe it's a TG165, if I'm not wrong. You could look that one up. And that will actually tell you beyond infrared. It'll show you on an LCD screen where your hotspots are, which is the best route to go, in my opinion.
Okay. Any other questions from chats? All right.
Thank you
Mr.
all.
Cardona. Thank you very much. We appreciate Bryan being here today. I want to thank you, all of you, for joining us, whether it is live or via Zoom. Please remember that our sessions are available on our YouTube channel if you want to revisit any information from the past year or the year before. Final thank yous. I want to say thanks again to the team from Milwaukee Tools, the team from Kelly Cronenberg, the team from Safe Right Solutions, and the members of our safety committee, Deborah Hampton, Ian Schwartz, Jose Bobadilla, Mark Leon, Enrique Sequeira, and last but certainly not least, Mr. Bryan Cardona. Hey, don't forget about our safety program. By the way, one of you asked, it is our 300, your 300A is what we're looking for. Okay, and a 300A will qualify you for the very basic level, our silver safety award. But if you want to go up for the gold or for the platinum, there are other things that we're going to require, like a corporate safety and health program, and written responses from company employees discussing your safety culture and your safety program. Yes, sir.
Can we get a copy of the PowerPoint?
Yes, sir. Everybody will receive a copy of the PowerPoint presentation in their inbox. So if you registered, you'll be getting it later today. Cool. Thank you all very much. I look forward to seeing you all soon. Don't forget December 8th, State of OSHA. I look forward to seeing you all here. Oh, we're